Hey guys, it's Larry, Dr. Trek here. Came across an interesting story. You need to be looking out for this because if you're really into your Trek history and so maybe some forgotten corners that have not been adequately covered, you're going to love this story. I want you to meet my friend Preston Jones. Yes, it is what you think it is. It's a Star Trek, the motion picture trash can, which was kind of cute and I thought very apt because we're talking about something that did not wind up in the trash can. This is my friend Preston.
Hi. Professionally, I go by the name Preston Neal Jones out of respect for a playwright from Texas named Preston Jones many years ago. He's sadly no longer with us, and you haven't lived until you've opened up Daily Variety and seen your name in the obits.
So, Preston, I was just very much taken. You know, I had seen a news story about your project, and then it was a pleasure to meet you at one of the meetings of the Table networking group. So let everyone know. But we started off with the motion picture, so that's the cue. But tell everybody about the amazing story of what's about to come out.
Some of you may remember the late lamented magazine Cinefantastique. And back in the late 70s, they did special double issues devoted to Star Wars and then one for Close Encounters. And then came 1979, and I got a call from the editor, Fred Clark. I'd done some pieces for him. And he asked if I would be interested in doing the special double issue of Star Trek the Motion Picture. And now, I've always loved fantasy and science fiction. I was not particularly a Trekker, I have to confess. But I mulled over his question, and I thought, I'll get to talk to Robert Wise. I'll get to talk to Jerry Goldsmith. I'll get to talk to Isaac Asimov. I said, yeah, sure, I'll do it. So that was the beginning of much more of a saga than either my editor or I could have anticipated. The other interviews had consisted of, the other issues for Star Wars and Close Encounters had consisted of about 20 interviews, and all done in standard interview format, Q&A. I ended up interviewing 60 people. And if you've read my book on the Night of the Hunter, called Heaven and Hell to Play With, the filming of the Night of the Hunter, you may know that I don't do Q&A. I just try to give people the A. And I edit it like a montage of memories, so that people, it's as if you were in a round table discussion with all of these people, in this case all 60 people, and they're taking turns sharing their memories of how this happened and how that came to be and what they did about that, and so on and so forth. To begin with, when I started, because I wasn't a Trekker, I went to all my friends who were, and I said, you're the audience I'm going to have to be sure to please. Now, what do you want me to be sure to put in this thing? And they all said the same thing. They said, detail, minutiae, spare us nothing for fear it will be too trivial. Right. And with that as my watchword, I was off to the races.
And that probably hits you more so now than it did then, because no one thinks about, unless you get around a property or a franchise like Star Trek, no one thinks about the fact that 30, 40, 50 years from now, you may have had the only shot at getting a nugget, something that was just part of the mix. You may have the only reference to it when people are on this decades later.
Well, there was a book, The Making of Star Trek by Susan Sackett, I'm sure you all know. And she had the disadvantage of having to finish the book before the movie was finished. Exactly. And people were working on shots for the movie, effects-wise, until literally days before the movie opened. It was the evening of the 6th, NASA gala opening in Washington, D.C., and then the next day, in fact, Robert Wise, the director, was there, of course, at the DC premiere. He carried the film in his luggage to the premiere, and he's sitting there next to a man who later became much more famous, named Jeffrey Katzenberg. He was the executive in charge of production. This was his first big challenge, in fact. And so the lights came up after the reeling and the applause, and Wise turned to Katzenberg and said, well, not bad for a first preview, The grim joke being, of course, that it was not only a preview, which usually means we know what to tweak now, we know what to add, we know what to cut. It means good, bad, or indifferent. It's going to be, what we just saw is going to be in thousands and thousands of theaters tomorrow morning.
Yeah, we just hope the cans have dried. They ship those wet, right?
Exactly.
So this book is taken from all the work that was in that special issue, right?
Well, there never was a special issue. You rascally. Thank you for getting me back onto that interesting part of the saga. The magazine paid me by advance. They were anxious to get the material. It took longer than they hoped for because of the meticulous way I edited it, but they did get it. And they advertised it, they promoted it for their would-be subscribers. This is the year to subscribe. They said, we'll have this special Star Trek issue. And then, for whatever reason, they never did. He kept promising it in other times, and it never happened. Sadly, the editor passed away, the magazine passed away. In some Star Trek circles, they were aware of it because it had been promoted.
Right.
And I think it's perhaps not too much to say that it's acquired kind of legendary status in some circles of Trek fandom. I wrote a little piece about it at one of the Trek sites describing the writing of the book and why it never happened and so on. I've had some false starts getting it published as a book, and now finally, a mere 35 years later, heyday, it is going to be out in the daylight. A book courtesy Creature Features. And thank you again, Mr. Features.
Well, give us at least one. I want to make sure and get the. I want to get the story of what all went into this. And 60 people from the motion picture. A lot of them, like Robert Wise, and a lot of that crew have passed away.
Entire acting crew,
fresh
of the
in the day
series. Plus the movie stars only for the movie Stephen Collins and Persis Kambana.
So but you're going to have enough in-depth and enough people out here watching this to. A lot of those people aren't around to talk to anymore. And that was such an odd bird of a movie because it was before the Hart-Bennett regime and before ILM came on the scene, and it really was kind of a bridge between the 70s and the Star Wars aftermath, and Robert Wise came out of the 2001 kind of era, and Star Wars had just happened, and it was from that panicky time in Hollywood when everybody said, quick, we have to do a sci-fi. And then the whole saga of Star Trek's own TV show, no movie, no TV show, no big movie. I mean, it's such a weird little crossroads in time.
Well, of course, we covered that backstory. Mind you, of course, in addition to the cast, I spoke to as many behind-the-scenes people as I could. I mentioned Jerry Goldsmith, the great composer, also the cinematographer, the makeup man, William Phillips of the original series fame. He was a lovely guy. And the editor, and the art director, and the costumer, the
Bob Fletcher. Yeah.
I'll tell you one thing that won't spoil anything because it's very early in the book. Mr. Roddenberry told me that when he was first brought onto the studio to resuscitate Star Trek, he was assigned an executive from Paramount to work with him on getting the thing going. And in their early discussions, this gentleman kept saying to Roddenberry, I don't like the Doctor character. And Roddenberry shrugged and thought to himself, well, I don't ask that everybody like all my characters, but he kept repeating it so often that Roddenberry asked him, he says, do you mind if I ask you what you don't like about the Doctor? And the guy said, well, I don't like the way he treated the children. And that's when Roddenberry realized he'd been dealing for all those weeks with someone who thought they were talking about Lost in Space. That's in the first few pages of the book, and it goes on from there.
And it goes on from there.
In similar fashion.
Yeah. Not quite Big Bang Theory era we were living in at the time.
It is a book, it's a trade-size paper book. And because of all that detail and minutiae I was talking about, it is about 670 odd pages.
Whoa! 670 something pages.
Give or take.
Okay. And so people go online, order, get that in now. What's the actual title?
Oh, well, by all means.
That motion picture book.
Silly me. I plugged my other book. I even plugged this one. It is called Return to Tomorrow, the filming of Star Trek, the motion picture.
Okay.
It seemed to me appropriate for the story, since it was the return to life of Star Trek.
Yeah. Well, anybody that knows the original series, there was an episode named that way.
Well, exactly. That's why I thought it was appropriate.
And I seem to remember that they wound up going way, 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 way underground, which seems apt when we talk about digging way back through the years to get give this thing some life finally. That's great. But for right now, everybody go out. Do you have a price on it? The 670
I
page
think
monster?
it's like $29.95. If I
oh my gosh!
correctly. But remember,
no, that's a steal. It's a large size.
All right.
No, my gosh, for that much lost history and detail.
Well, I like to think it's a bargain, certainly.
No, it is. I was expecting more.
For a mere $30, you get years of my life and years of the creation of Star Trek: The Motion Picture.
No, I'm just thinking there's bound to be tons of lost, forgotten, strayed stories in that volume, and I'll be getting mine too by hook or by crook.
Oh, I got a million of them. A million of them.
Well, thanks for that, and we will see you at the signing, if nothing else. And,
thank you, sir.
Yeah, and thank you for holding on to all these years and sharing it, and thanks to Creature Features for helping it see the light of reanimating it for the light of day.
Amen.
Okay, thanks, Preston.
Thank you.